This is the Inside Data Center podcast. We talk to the people who power the data center sector to give you insider info on everything happening in DC today. Here's your host, Andy Davis.
Welcome to the Inside Data Center podcast. Today I'm joined by Tom Babbington, Pre-Construction Manager at DPR. Afternoon, Tom.
Hey Andy, how you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thanks for coming on. Bit of a different one today. We're on to talk about your pending European cycling tour, which is leading up to DataCloud in Cannes. So looking forward to having a bit of an insight into the why behind that and also how, which is a question I'd ask myself if I was doing it, because I certainly wouldn't be able to do it. Before we do that, do you want to give a quick introduction of who you are and what your role is at DPR?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm been in the construction industry for quite a while. Started back, I got into data centers in 2012, 2013 with my previous employer, and then spent some time going through the ranks, and I've ended up at DPR, where I've been for 6 years, and we're a data center builder in Europe, and we do other things in the US, but predominantly data centers here. And I'm part of the sort of the core market business development side of the business here.
Yeah, and on the sort of on the career aspect of it, if you go back, how did you first move into construction industry? Because it's one of those industries where we all know it's a real struggle to get people to come into it. So I'm always interested to hear the story.
Oh well, so if anyone wants to get sponsored and go and work for the UN, that's the route that I did, because I worked in Afghanistan for 6 months with the UN and got sponsored by a construction consultancy. And when I came back from there, they put me on Wembley for a couple of years, and that was my first main construction job, was Wembley Stadium. And then I went from there to sort of program managing in the hospitality sector, which was completely different ball game altogether. Like, you're working with some really nice folk because they're in the hospitality sector, but they don't know much about construction. They're just like, it's going to be ready whenever. And that got me into traveling. So I've always traveled a lot, always been based in the UK, but traveled a lot, and then ended up in data centers because the boom of 2013, on a few big campuses. And then, looking back now, it was a bizarre journey, but I've met tons of people, which has been great, which is kind of leads me to be in a good position I am now, and in terms of connectivity. And that's kind of what I enjoy, is like the people that we work with in the industry, and the people in the industry is what makes it fun, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It's hard enough.
Full of great people. And that brings us on to putting together a team of great people to cycle to Cannes, which is probably to me, it seems like quite a difficult thing to do. But before, do you want to give us an overview of what the tour of Europe is, and maybe a bit of a look into DCCC as well, and how it all came together?
So you introduced it from the outset that this is going to be something different, and the whole mindset initially was to do something different. Like, we can spend a ton of time at conferences talking about data centers and technology and equipment and resources and stuff. And I was like, I quite like hanging out with these people, and I talk about something that's in my comfort zone, and that's riding a bike. So ended up leading into that. And then every year, tons of people in our sector go down to the Côte d'Azur and they drink rosé and they talk about stuff. And I was like, well, why don't we just cycle here? And it was kind of a bit of a joke. And then I was like, well, actually, it's quite possible. And DPR has offices in Amsterdam, Frankfurt, and Zurich. And I was like, well, just go via there. We'll collect people on the way in the industry, and they can join us, and we'll make it fun. We'll follow the river, and then the Alps we'll have to cross twice, but that's fine, because that's what cyclists like doing. And then we'll get to Cannes and join in the conference. And that literally what we did. There was the main motivation was, let's do something different. Let's talk about it's a good news story, right? It's something different. The sector's hard enough, and there's loads of people that spend a lot of time exercising whatever format, but cycling in particular. And what can we do that's different, that changes the subject out of the norm? And that brought us to Mates in Mind, the charity, which there's very few charities that unite within our industry, and that particularly is a charity that looks at mental health in construction, which is a huge area when you think the suicide rates are increasing, particularly in men, and that's the dominant part of our industry. So it was a united charity. It was a community event, and lots of people have always challenged me. They're like, well, it's not very community, is it? You're cycling 200 kilometers a day. Like, how inclusive is that? And I get it. Like, there's got to be a challenge in my mind. So yeah, that is like the origin of it, and we made it happen. And the 12 of us that did it last year that have some good memories and a few scars. But we're like, well, we can make it happen again, and we'll try and raise some more money this year and raise awareness. So
No,
that was the history.
Yeah, and I think it's a great thing to do, and I totally agree with your point around mates in mind, and it's good to do something for meaning as well. Like, so it has meaning. Obviously, that I think you touched on it at the start, the networking element. I think there's a huge opportunity for that within sport and within different environments. It doesn't have to be in a bar, so there's a tick there. But also the fact that you're giving something back to something that's really important to the industry as well. And like you say, young men, middle-aged men, we are the ones that unfortunately have to experience a lot of this through friends and colleagues. And it's a topic that needs to be talked about, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, we can't hide away from it, and you need events like yours to bring it to the fore. Yeah.
And look, our industry is, the people that work in it, they choose to work in construction because of all the challenges that it brings, right? It suits a certain character. But in data centers, the challenges are increased because the value of what we're trying to achieve and the time we're trying to achieve it. And then you put them in a location that probably isn't their home. And you're like, right, now go and live away from your family and work really hard. And by the way, RFS needs to be a bit earlier because we've got a new tenant that wants to buy this. And you're like, all this burden's put on folks. And so, and I, for my own sake, I ride my bike. That's my therapy. It clears my head so I can then be better at my job. I can be better with my family and my friends. And I've just met lots of people along the way who are exactly the same. And the guys doing this and the girls doing this, this is a challenge. Of course, it's a challenge. Getting back in your saddle to do another 200K the next day and the next day, it's going to be tough. Everyone's desperately looking forward to it, right? It's fun, and we'll spend 8 hours sitting next to each other talking absolute nonsense, and we probably won't mention data centers. We'll mention our lives. I think last year we started singing Backstreet Boys songs. It was a bizarre moment, but that was during the 10 minutes of rain that we had. It's a weird experience, and we get to the end, and that sense of achievement it's emotional internally, but then we look at what we've achieved and what the charity's got from it, and that's a big one.
Yeah. And how hard was it to convince people to join you on the ride?
Well, as I said, the comment is like, it's not very inclusive, but some people are going, I'm in. What do I need to do? And you're like, well, this. I've only today have I've actually shared the route with some of the people because they're a little bit on the fence. So I didn't want to. I was like, yeah, it's kind of at 180K a day, and then I shared the route, and there's a couple of 225K days. So the WhatsApp chat is lit up with some coarse remarks, but they'll be all right.
Yeah, and obviously you need sponsors as well to do things like this. So who else is involved? What companies are backing you to support you on the journey?
Yeah, so we're lucky to have DPR, who I work for, is behind this, and we've got 3 or 4 riders from DPR doing it this year, and we had 6 last year. So they're happy to support it. We're doing a mental health awareness month in the US predominantly, so this feeds nicely into that. Your guest last week from Zauna, Andreas, Zauna are behind it. We work with them a great deal across Europe, and they have a similar mindset to us. So we've convinced them to take part. Synergy, Mission Critical, Steve Baker, and is he's also riding it, and his company supporting it. And then our friend Damien Wells at Sparcoms, he doesn't miss out on cycling events and an opportunity to talk about them. So we need to give him that platform, right?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny when you talk about it, I've spoke to a few people about it. I had a chat with Steve recently, and obviously I spoke to Andreas, and I was speaking to Craig Eady recently as well about, like, there is quite a good cycling community in the sector, which again you wouldn't know if you're not into cycling, but I think it's great that there is those little communities within the industry of people just enjoying something different together.
Well, last year, Craig and his bike shop and his company supported it, and it wouldn't have happened without him being part of it last year. He didn't ride it because he was doing even more crazy cycling events. But yeah, there's tons of cyclists in our community. Less golf, more cycling, I think. But that's maybe because I only listen to one side of it.
Yeah, definitely. And what's the dates then? So when do you start, obviously, and when do you finish? Obviously before Cannes, but what are the dates?
Yeah, so this year we're setting off on the 26th of May, which gives us 9 days to get to Cannes. So we'll follow the flatlands to Frankfurt, then a couple of days down to Zurich, and then 4 days from there. So we arrive in Cannes on the 3rd. Yeah, and we're averaging about 192k average days, with for some reason we decided to make the route slightly more complicated this year for fun, because following the river we thought was a bit boring, but there's enough of us on the road that we'll get through it. You don't want to know about calorie counts because that will ramp up. We have a strict organization that runs it to make sure we eat enough and drink enough, so we're taken care of in that respect. Yeah, I'm looking forward to not sitting in my garage and training and actually getting on the road.
Yeah, and from a support perspective, obviously, hopefully this has got quite a good audience, but what can people do to help you? I know obviously we'll go on to sponsorship and where they can do that, but is there anything else the industry can do to support you on your journey?
Well, the good thing about Mates in Mind is it's not as a charity. It also does training, and it also raises awareness about mental health in construction. So they have an app, they have resources, so you can get trained in sort of mental health awareness. So it's worth just reaching out to Mates in Mind and seeing what they can do on your job site, and see if there's someone that can do the qualifications required, but ultimately it comes down to the simple aspect of, like, just checking on the people around you, right? And make sure they're doing okay. It's not more complicated than that. There's charities, but shouldn't need to be charities, because we should all care about the people next to us, and if they're struggling, and if something's not right, and trying to help them. So Mates in Mind have got that sort of covered, and use them, but don't look further than the person sitting next to you if you don't need to.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously it's a global industry, and I think when I talk to people like yourself and about events like this, I just think there's such a huge opportunity to do similar events on a global scale. Not saying you, Tom, and you're like riding across USA or anything, but I think if we can join the dots, and part of what I try to do in the industry is just get people a bit closer together, I think we can learn a lot from these events. You say, actually, you could do this in different. There's no reason why people can't copy what you're doing somewhere else in the world, and again, give that support back to a charity. So I'm sure you'd be happy to chat to anyone if they think I could do that somewhere else in the world.
And we'd love to generate a community of people that cycle. The Data Center Cycling Club was the intention. It's basically the same club that you've set up. We've just added cycling in and a different website. And if there's an opportunity to support anybody that wants to do a cycling event, then we'll try and do that. We want, with cycling, we can use Strava. So we've set up a Strava group, so anyone in the industry can come and join that, and they can add their miles to our total tally, and then we'll see where that goes. If I know there's a few folks that are riding on the Monday in Cannes, so they're going there, they're getting their bikes, and they're doing a big old jaunt up the hills. So we'll hope that they'll take part in it, and we'll try and raise more awareness and do similar next year.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with the Data Center Club, it's exactly the concept is the same. And I think I'm happy to again support from that basis, because I had in my head, like, data center running club and data center golf club, and that's where it all started. And I think, but that can be split between too many people, because it's something that's why a lot of this doesn't happen, is because you can't do it all on your own. And I think it's definitely a great way, in my opinion, to just draw the industry together and bring people with similar interests, similar activities, get them out. It's not about work. It's just about, if I'm in a different country and I want to ride my bike, I can look on the Data Center Cycling Club and say, all right, Tom's in Amsterdam. I'll drop Tom a message. I'm in Amsterdam next week. Do you want to go for a bike ride? I think that's how we can just take away some of these challenges about being remote and isolated and not really knowing what to do in these countries.
Yeah. We're trying to, the intention is to provide the support and the access. And so we're trying to talk to bike shops, because you can't take your bike everywhere, but everywhere has bike shops, so you can pick them up, you can find someone to ride with, and that can be your morning. Rather than getting to the conference early or getting to your meeting early, you can meet up with someone and go. They can take you around. Everyone in the industry has been to Frankfurt enough times, but actually, as soon as you get out of Frankfurt, there's some beautiful woodlands that you can go and cycle around and go visit. So it's worth tapping into that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely something we can talk about again, because I think there's a lot we can do together on that. Well, I'm sure a lot of people would love to sponsor you and love to follow your journey. Where can they do that?
So we've got the website, which is datacentercyclingclub.com. I'm sure you'll add a link to that. And then there's a Just Giving page at the bottom of that tab. So it's all dc.cc, tour of Europe. And we'll be bombarding LinkedIn from various different angles to make sure people get to see and hear about it. So if any support is going to be great. We really appreciate it, especially when it's going to be tough. Tough part of this. Day 3 is normally day 3 and day 4 are going to be the toughest, because we haven't quite bedded into our saddles and we're running low on food and we're probably sick of the people next to us by then.
I get it. And I'll definitely obviously support on mine as well. Like we'll back it, we'll support it as much as we possibly can as well, I think, and hopefully everyone else does. But and I know that I spoke to DataCloud, and I know they were looking at something when you arrive. I don't know if anything's been arranged yet, but when you head into Cannes, what's the plan? Do you know the times, or is that approximate?
I'm not. Yeah, so we haven't planned that. Organising a reception as well as an event was a bit too much for me, so I'm leaving that to others. So once we have details, we'll let someone know to share it.
Yeah, hopefully, obviously, if people are in Cannes, which I know a lot of people listening will be, even if they're not there on the Monday, on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, sure they'll come and find you and buy you a drink and toast your journey. Hopefully,
donate, and then buy us a drink in that order. That would be great.
Exactly. Yeah, get a free drink and use the money for the free drink to donate to the charity. That's what we could do. We can push that all 3 days in Cannes. People get bored of us saying that, but no, definitely. But thanks for talking about it. I say it's important that we do things like this. It's important for the charity, but it's also important for the industry that it brings people together. So as I say, it's a great exercise from my point of view, and obviously we will share everything. We'll put in the show notes the website. We'll put the Just Giving site in it. If anyone can't find anything, find me. I'll point you in the right direction, and hopefully we can have a celebratory drink in Cannes in a few weeks.
I look forward to it. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm always available to chat about it. I'm more happy talking about this than I probably would be many other subjects. So just ask. I'm here.
Exactly. Definitely. Well, good luck with the training. I'll see you in a few weeks, and obviously we'll have a drink then.
Cheers, Andy. Thanks, mate.